So secondary mortgage markets, what they do is when people take out loans or mortgages from the bank, in order for the bank to be able to make more mortgages, they sell it off to secondary investors. For example, they sell it to pension funds, or they can send it off to the federal government or just insurance companies. These people will then take on the mortgages. And then the people that took out the mortgages originally from the bank, they're no longer involved with the bank. They're more involved with the mortgage companies themselves. Almost all of the mortgages that are taken out, almost all of them will eventually end up in another company's hands, a secondary company. That's the secondary mortgage market. And then they will be in charge of the payments and everything like that. That's where ratings are important when it comes to mortgages. I mean, because it's not a singular mortgages that go to these companies. They're packaged together and they're rated. And they're rated based on, how risky of a mortgage or an investment it is for the secondary investors to take in it. For example, if someone has really good credit, if a bunch of people have really good credit and will pay back the bank, it's going to get a higher rating. And so it's a less risky investment for these secondary investors to come and take over the mortgages. Likewise, if they're a little bit lower, it's going to be a little bit more riskier. And so you have a high chance of, if someone has bad credit, then they're not going to be, the odds of them paying back the mortgage are going to be low. Now, if they do pay back the mortgages, then the person who invests in that has a really good shot of making some really good money. Now, the current state of the secondary mortgage market it's starting to get into a pace of what kind of started causing the housing crisis. There started to be a little bit riskier loans that started to go out. However, I know there are a lot of regulations because this is one of the things that started the housing crisis, because there were a lot of bad mortgages and bad loans that started being packaged and saying that they were good. And so a lot of investors would come and buy the loans and buy the mortgages, and they wouldn't get their money back. And then what would happen is then they would start losing money, and then the banks wouldn't be able to get the money back to bank more mortgages, and eventually everything just started tanking. Now with regulations, it's starting to be a little bit better, but we're starting to get into this phase of, there's starting to be some loans that are going a little bit south. The future possibilities, they kind of vary. For example, when it comes to bankruptcy, it takes about 7 years for that to get off of your credit. So from 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, kind of when the housing crisis was happening and the people were going into bankruptcy, for 7 years they're not able to go and try and get more mortgages. But now it's 7 years later, and those people are now back in the market looking for mortgages, looking for loans that is off of their credit now. And so that's something that you kind of have to deal with a little bit. Another thing to know is the importance of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and what they have in the secondary mortgage market, and the role that they had. How it's important to know that it's a government subsidized entity. And so they were getting a lot of help from the government, and even they got a little bit too involved of just handing out mortgages and loans to people that couldn't be able to pay it back and shipping it off to people and investors, expecting good mortgages from these that are packaged with good ratings, and it just isn't. They're just not good. They should be packaged a little bit lower than what they were actually rated. And so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are dealing with this issue right now. And so they right now control a large part of the secondary mortgage market. From what I've read and from what I've followed up, something that people have tried to push is for more investors to start coming in the market, and then for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to start kind of taking a little bit of a step back. They've been very conservative since there was a federal takeover during the housing market crisis, but still they're good for the market, but it may start getting a little bit out of hand in the future.